Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Today's going to be a work day. I know there's not much going on in the grow room, but I had a bulletin stuck in front of me, newsletter, whatever you want to call it, and it just sparked stuff off. Takes a bit to get this going nowadays, but sometimes you get a little trigger. And combined with the video I did on my Pleiones, where we had a look at them all, well, today we're going to do some work. I had to go and do some research to find out some stuff. And as always, when you do research on the internet, you come up with multiple possibilities, solutions, ideas, thoughts, methods. And you have to sort of decide which one is probably going to suit you best. Or in my case, amalgamate those that make sense, that sound like that would work for me. Now, Howard's Orchids, doesn't post often, but has got a very good video on Pleiones, and it's basically 3 or 4 videos joined together to make a season's care. So that took a year to make, basically, in bits, storing the bits up. So thanks for that. I doubt if you're watching me, but anyway, some lovely Pleiones, mostly hybrids, but some species, including one I've got. And basically the season starts for him repotting. Now, the other Pleiones I've got these here. This one came from Burnham's, and that is one of the bulbils that was potted up separately, so those go together really. And this lot have come from Helen, and they came from my friend Alan's front garden, basically under his conifer tree. But they are allegedly all the same. Now, Helen has said she thinks they're Tongariro. Alan can't remember. They've been in the ground so long and spread all over the place. He's forgotten what they were when they were put in, because he probably only had a few at that time, and it would have been some time ago. But I'm going to put all these in one pot on the grounds that if a few of them come up different and they're not Tongariro, let's put it the other way round. Those ones that are just a few and are different are Tongariro, because they've come labelled from a nursery, and it means that these aren't. Yeah? And at which point they can be separated later in the year, come the autumn or something like that. I can put a marker on them or something. So I'm going to pot them all up together. Now, the things I needed to know was, when is the best time? Yeah? Well, I found several sources showing repotting, and in all cases the new shoots were showing. So let me put my coffee down. So as we saw, we have new shoots. Yeah? And in all cases, those that were repotting, new shoots, 2 on that one. And some of them had had all the roots taken off. Some of them had had some of the roots taken off. In Howard's case, he took half of them off, like that. The reason being, these roots do not supply anything to the bulb. They are in fact dead. And they don't regrow and they don't branch. Well, I didn't know that, now I do. Yeah? So they are the previous year's roots. They are of no use at all, except they might help anchor the bulb in place before they completely die off and rot down. But I wouldn't want to leave too many of those, because I don't like any form of rot in a pot if I can avoid it. So basically, the time of year to do it is more geared up to, are they shooting out or not? Yeah? And if they're not, it's probably best to wait until they do. because once these shoots get going, they will produce a new set of roots for the growing season. Now, I'm not absolutely certain when the roots grow, but I did see some that were in flower that were lifted, showing the new root system, you know, like 1.5 inches or so long, so becoming established, and that's while they were in flower. Well, these aren't going to be too long. This one from Burnham's was in flower when I got it, and that was March. Yeah? Well, you know, we're into January now. They've got to grow and produce the bud and open. And the other thing I found out is that, again, Howard's information is useful for repotting, yes, with an adjustment to the media. I'll say why in a minute. But he leaves his outside all year round. I don't. Mine spent last year in here. I certainly don't want them outside when they're in bloom. I want them in here so that I can enjoy the blooms. Now, I may put them outside for the growing season because in theory it should be cooler. Yeah? But then I do get the faff because we could get bugs. It means I've got to go out there to water them. And if I want to feed them, I've got to mix that up in here. And, you know, it would, if they're in here, they can be looked after with the other orchids. Now, Mathers, theirs don't go outside, but they do cheat a little bit. They have a very long grow space, very long. The door at one end, well, obviously, you've got to get in and out, haven't you? And up the other end, they take the wall down. Come the growing season, they take the wall down. It's got netting and everything to keep the bugs out, but they take the panels out basically, so they get good airflow and it helps keep it as cool as they can, because obviously the sun hits the roof. But they're inside technically, and that would get warmer probably than being outside, even with the end wall taken down. So we've got one person leaving them outside. There were variations on this that I found in other places, but you're also looking at other countries as well, you know. If you're in Spain, then I can't imagine you would want to bring them in. You'd leave them out. But you might want to bring them in the summer because it gets too hot outside. And you might, you know, if you've got air conditioning, you might be able to keep them cooler inside. They do like to stay cool. Now, as far as potting mixes are concerned, I asked Sarah what hers are in. Hers go in their seedling mix, which is small bark, seedling bark, yeah? And it is, can I get that up in front of the camera without dropping it everywhere? It is quite small, and it does have bits in it, you know, that when it's dry look like almost like dust basically. So that's that. And she said that they add a bit of potting compost to give it a bit of body and perlite. So that's Sarah's mix. Now she's got some coming up for sale. Now you're not to brag about this and tell anyone because everybody might think about doing it, but I'm going to try and do a deal whereby next week we might take a little trip and get in front of everybody else before they go on sale and hand pick some. The deal isn't done yet. Unfortunately, Sarah's at a show. Well, she's on her way to a show. I just phoned to find out. So she's on her way to a show for tomorrow. They're not open Sunday. They'll be, you know, unloading everything Sunday morning probably, or we might do it Saturday night when they get back. But I'll contact her and see if this is an okay thing to actually arrive and handpick some prior to the world being notified what's available. I don't think it'll be a problem, but she might think that's an unfair advantage. But she gets the sale. One way or the other, she gets to sell them, you know. I could be buying some of those that will be left over and she doesn't sell. Mind you, she'll pop those up and you know, they'll go to the shows when they're in flower. Yes, so Sarah seedling mix, and no moss. Mathers, let's go and get one. Was this the one that came out? Yes. Mathers have got a mix here that's bark, and that looks like small to medium bark, sphagnum moss, heavy on the sphagnum moss, and perlite. Now that is dust dry at the moment, and because of the type of pot they've used, and these were for sale, so they're not keeping them, there's lacquer in the bottom of there. So that's how they do theirs for sale. That's not necessarily what they do on the ones that are part of the collection that they intend keeping. They tend to go in large clay pans, probably in that mix, but possibly without the lacquer in the bottom because they'd have shallower pots. So what am I going to do then? I'm going to get that out of the way. The other thing I found is that not everybody repots. Howard repots every year. That's what he does, but his are outside. They're going to get rained on, they're going to get watered with the hose. So in theory the media is going to be a lot wetter in the growing season than mine might be, and he uses old orchid media. So like when he repots, say an oncidium or something like that might have had the bark and the mix in the pot a couple of years, he puts that to one side and uses it for the Pleiones. So it's old mix, in which case it's going to hold moisture more than it would do if it was new, which I'm not doing. First of all, I don't keep my old mix. Yeah, so I'm going to do a mix that's between the two. So I'm going to have some moss. I will break it up very small so that it mixes in. What Howard does is he puts his basic mix in the pot, and then he puts a layer of sphagnum moss and then some more mix on top of that. The idea being that there's a moist, permanently moist layer with the moss that the roots can hunt for. Good theory, but I'm going to do it the other way and make the whole mix available by adding the moss to the whole lot. So I'm going to use seedling bark, some sphagnum moss broken up really small, and some perlite. That's going to be my mix. We'll see if it works. We've got a growing season coming up and we've got some Pleiones already. I'm going to Mathers at the beginning of April. They will have some for sale at great expense. They don't have any cheap ones. But they're all good quality, you know, flowering size bulbs, often in a pot in flower. So you get to see exactly what you're getting, which is good. Because if you buy the bulbs, unless you know the species or hybrid, then you don't know what you're getting. Yeah, you're going a bit blind. So, which if I go to Sarah's is what I'll be doing. But hopefully there might be some pictures. Who knows? If she's going to put them on the website, I would imagine she'll have pictures to show what the blooms are going to be like. We'll work on that. Sounds like somebody waking up. It's about right because I've started filming. Little tyke. Right, so that's the information I've got. Some don't repot every year and don't unpot them. Others religiously take them out of the pots, clean all the roots off, dry them and store them cold somewhere in a fridge sometimes, or in a shed in a frost-free greenhouse, ready to pot up again in the spring. So those people are repotting every year, but they're also storing the dormancy period out of the pots. And then you get others that store them in the pots. Yeah? So it's a mix of the two. Now mine have all been stored in the pots this winter. That might not be what I do next year. That's not decided yet. So we'll chuck that up there and we will sort out what we've got here. Now this one which is from Burnham's. It's got a nice big fat bulb, bigger than anything else I've got. It's already got its new shoot coming, and there's two. And I also discovered what I thought might have been the old flower spike is actually the old bulb shriveled away to nothing. Now I didn't see that happen, that's why it didn't dawn on me. Basically, the bulb that flowered is this. This is the shoot that was sticking out of that bulb. Hang on, let me get this right. No, this is the new shoot that had the flower on, and this is the bulb it came out of. So that is the old bulb. I'll get my head around this eventually. More coffee. But if I wasn't potting up all my Tongarieros in one pot, that could stay in there, in theory, because I know that was potted up at the beginning of last year. So the media's not old or deteriorated, it's still fine. But if you look at the size of the bulb and the fact that there's two new growths, there's no room in that pot for those to grow to full size. So it's coming out. It should just lift out basically, in which case we get to see what a year's worth of roots look like. Tag to one side. So yeah, the old media falls away quite nicely. And as I've said, the roots have got hairy bits on them, so they're a bit sort of like, no, I was going to say they're a bit like Paphiopedilums, but they have got hairy bits on, and that's where they were stuck to the side of the pot. So as these are all old roots and of no use, I'm going to do what Howard does and break them off. Yeah? So I'm just breaking them off, leaving enough to be able to possibly just help the bulbs sit in. And then I'm going to tidy them up by getting these old sheaths off, get those out of the way, make the bulb look nice and clean, like so. And now it's out of the pot, you can see the old bulbs. So that's not a flower spike, that's what was like this, smaller. And that's what they shrivel away to. And like I said, I didn't see this because once the flowers went over, I took the dead flowers off, and of course the leaf's starting to grow at that point. So all I was interested in was watching the new leaf grow and watching the bulb swell up. I didn't notice the old bulb shriveling. But that's it. And I'll take it off because it's an old bulb. Old and dead. Right, so we've got that one. So I need to keep these to one side. See, that's a tiny little bulb, but it has got a new shoot. Yeah, that's where that one just came from. Oh, of course I tipped Helen's out, didn't I? Right, so that's another little one. Another one with a nice shoot again. So these smaller bulbs this size may not flower, but they should produce a much better sized bulb this year once the leaf gets going and they grow roots, and then they will flower next year. So bulbs this size may not bloom this year, but they should next year. Again, that's a slightly damaged one, but we'll pot it anyway. Tiny little bulb here, but two new shoots. Yeah? Hopefully they'll grow to a decent size and possibly two flowers on that. Not next year, probably the year after. Another one here with nice pair of new shoots. It's quite a lot of these have got two new shoots. Not all of them, but quite a few. So, you know, there's quite a large bulb that's only got one. So I'm putting these to one side as I go round. That one's only got one, but that's quite a small bulb. That's a flowering size bulb. That's only got one. And that one should flower as well. That's only got one. So there's a mix. Right. And now we've got to sort through Helen's tangle of smaller, not flowering size bulbs, which is what the rest of the bag was. So these are in fact bulbils. These are probably 3 years away from blooming, but I'm going to dot them around in the pot so that they've got room to grow on. I mean, some of them are bigger than actual bulbils and actually have a new growth. But Helen grows hers in, I think she grows them in seed trays, so very shallow root run. Nice strong new shoot on that one. It now is an unusual one. This one has got a bulbil that's got a new growth on it, and it's got a new growth coming up halfway up the bulb, and another one here. So we'll keep those as a group. They can just go in the pot as they are. That's too small to bother with, really. Oh, I don't know. It's got a shoot, and so's that one. No, we will pot them, despite them taking quite a long time to come to flowering. Now, I'm not going to be one of those that repots every year. Mine are going to stay in their pots for their dormancy period, and because I'm mixing up fresh media when I pot these, there'll be nothing wrong with that media for next year, 2027, so they will stay in the pot, so they won't get disturbed. Right, the rest of that is rubbish. So that's what we're potting up, and then we've got this one as well. Now this was one that was a bulbil off the big one from Burnham's, and I potted it up. It was big enough to pot up earlier in the growing season last year, so it actually grew to a reasonable size. It'll be interesting to see what roots it had on. Now that's my mix, but that was my small bark, not seedling bark. So my seedling bark is even smaller than that. Oh, it grew some roots. Well, obviously. And that little bulbil has got 2 new shoots. So that was a tiny bulbil last year that actually I believe grew out of the top of the bulb. We took it off, we potted it, and it's swollen up and now is producing 2 new shoots, which by the end of this growing season will have bulbs bigger than this. Yeah? So you can see how quickly these bulk up. Many of my bulbs have 2 shoots, and some of the larger ones that have got 2 shoots hopefully will get 2 flowers. Occasionally you get 2 flowers on a spike, but that depends on the species or hybrid. Just a bit of a tidy up here, get everything out of the way. Those won't get used, they're too small. Right, so where's my rubbish bag? Ugh. Just want to get the old stuff out of the way, and we'll start afresh. And it doesn't matter if a bit of this old mix gets mixed in with the new mix. There's nothing really wrong with it. I just want to start from scratch. That way I have a history, starting from scratch, and we can see how they do. Now I will create a playlist. I will have a Pleione playlist. I don't know whether any of you follow playlists or not, but it's a place where you get a set of videos, one after the other, about a subject or a particular plant or a little small set of plants. And I use them quite often. Right, so I'm going to use this pot. This is new, hasn't been used before. And that's all it just had a name on it that wasn't Helen. Obviously just used an already used envelope. Right, now this pot is a little bit too deep, so what I'm going to do is get some larger bark to make a base to put the mix on. Yeah, let's bring the giant bag out here. Let's take the pot to the giant bag. I'll be back. Right, I'll bring the camera around and get set up with my tray so that you can see what's going on now. As I say, most of this first part of the video was chat, so wasn't much to see over here anyway, and I was holding stuff up to the camera so we can now see the tray. So this is my pot. I wonder how long I've had this pot. This was $1.69 when I bought it, still got its price tag on. I doubt if it would cost that now. Be that and some, I bet. Oh, I don't think that's going to come off. It will probably come off a lot easier once it starts getting wet. Right, so that's my pot. Let's get that out of the way. Now I'm just having a look to see if I can judge how much mix I'll need, because obviously the plants are not going to take up much room. So we will start off with some seedling mix, purposely got for the Pleiones. And I've actually got some more to do with the Pleiones after this, so I'm mixing up a fair bit here. So that's that. And then we'll add some sphagnum moss. Now obviously Mathers are heavy on the moss. I'm not going to be as heavy on the moss, but I do want an amount, and we'll mix it in. But what I'm going to do is break it up small, so I'm just going to tear it up. And there'll be lots of little dusty bits that are moss, as well as the actual small pieces with bits of stem and stuff. What some people do to get a fine mix is actually rub it through a sieve. Now that tears it up and produces quite small pieces. But I'm just going to rip this up. Now by rights I ought to have wet this, but the watering at the beginning of the season has to be incredibly careful, otherwise these new growths will just rot, because they're going to be in the media. Yeah. Now they will get going reasonably well, but they need enough moisture. What Howard did was he actually watered his with a little watering can, and he gave them a trickle, but he did actually water them. Now I'm thinking what I might do is actually spray the surface, but I haven't got to that stage yet. I'm keeping my eye on this as I tear it up so that I don't have too much in the mix. So although I want a presence, I don't want a dominance. As I say, the Mathers mix is, but that's a nursery. They've got to think about watering a whole collection, and I doubt if they go round looking at each individual pot. Imagine how long that would take. I don't know how many hundreds of pots they've got, but as I say, I don't think they would be miserable Moni's having a yowl. That means he's had something to eat. He comes out of the kitchen, sits in the entrance to the kitchen in the doorway and has a yowl, and I think that's to tell me, yes, I've had some food. It might be to tell me that it's all gone. But it shouldn't be, he had plenty there. He's still eating well for a very old cat that's losing weight quite dramatically, or has lost weight quite dramatically. I'm not sure he's actually losing it at a phenomenal rate anymore, but he has done. But he still eats well. Those sachets of meat that he has, for his weight, they recommend 3 to 4 a day for an adult healthy cat. Well, you know, at his age you wouldn't class him as a healthy cat, but he eats 3 to 4 of those packs. And he has his mints on top of that. When I've got some, that comes with the shopping every week, or 8 or 9 days, something like that. Right, let's have a stir and see how much moss is actually there now. No, we'll add that bit in as well. As I say, you've got Sarah doesn't use any moss at all. She just uses the seedling mix, but she has potting compost in hers, which you could say is actually dirt. You know, it's a sort of dirt. But then she must keep some, otherwise she wouldn't have a load to sell now, would she? I don't think she buys them in, but then she might. She might have a supplier that she does a deal with and gets a load in at this time of year. Sells them as bulbs, you know, bare rooted bulbs. And then those that don't sell, that come into growth, she pots up to produce the blooms and then gets them out to the shows, which is where I got mine. Right, that's that. Oh, itchy nose. Now this is the right tub, because I've got one tub that's got quite a bit in and one that's nearly empty. Yeah, this is the good one, because it weighs nothing whether it's full or empty. Now, a word of warning: if you play with perlite, keep your face out of the dust. The dust is harmful if you breathe it in. It really is not good for you. It doesn't break down, so it gets in your lungs and can cause problems. That'll do. You notice I don't measure anything. I do my mixes by eye. And you know, the frequency of the white dots in here tells me how much I've got, and the frequency of the brown shaggy bits tells me how much moss is in the mix, and I'm happy with that. So let's get that lid back on, stop any dust flying around. Right, that's it. Get that out of the way. And what we do now, get our pot, hopefully we mixed up enough, and we get a layer on. Now these don't need to come right up to the top of the pot. Settle that in. Now what we've got to do is arrange things. Make pretty patterns, basically. Now, that's my biggest bulb by far. That would be nice in the middle, wouldn't it? So that's where that one's going to go, in the middle. Now don't worry about these not going in very deep, because I've still got some more to put on once I've placed them. And then the rest of these I'm just going to randomly plonk around the pot. So not too close together, but not miles apart. And I'm picking on the big ones at the moment, the ones that could possibly bloom, and making a nice pattern around the big one in the middle, which will bloom. That one I can guarantee, but some of the others, you know, I'm totally new to this game. Totally new. Right, so that's a sort of ring of the bigger ones. Now we've got to squash the little ones in the gaps, so we'll, or the smaller ones. Now, some of these smaller ones might produce a bloom. What we will have is a random pattern of blooms. Got no guarantee it will be a nice regular pattern. Whoops. But we've got a good few to get around, and the really small ones I can put right on the edge of the pot. You know, those tiny little ones like this. They can just find a gap somewhere near the edge. And these absolutely tiny little ones, they're going to get buried. Well, hopefully they'll push through. I mean, this is how the bulbils work in the wild. They fall off and they fall to the ground, and then they have to rely on, you know, getting into something. Right, another little one there, tiny one, go there. Right, and then all I'm going to do is sprinkle this over the top so that I'm not burying them, I'm just filling in the gaps, and this will help hold them steady. And that's it. And you should end up with about a third of the bulb poking out. And again, variable information. Some people sit the bulb on the media and don't bury it at all. Some bury a third, some bury half, some, like me, bury 2/3. But remember how free draining this is going to be. The only thing that's really going to hold a lot of moisture in this pot is the moss. The bark is brand new. The perlite will hold some moisture, obviously. Now, somehow or other, I've got to get some moisture into that. So I will have to water it. But as I said, I think I might be going to do that with a sprayer. So if you try and pour something on there, it could bloop and you end up with too much. But at the moment, that media is dust dry. So I doubt if I could actually get too much water on it. So that's that. Now that was the Burnham's tag. That does actually have, Tongariro is actually a hybrid crossed with a species. There's nothing on that tag that I need, and it's also got a price on it, which I'm not too keen on showing up in videos. And I'm going to use my label, so I will stick my label down the side. Right, so that's that one done. And now what we're going to do is sort these out. Now these are big bulbs and there's only 3, but they've all got double shoots and they're all large bulbs, so they've all got 2 shoots. So there's going to be 6 new bulbs off of these 3, so they need a pot big enough for that. I think, no, that's a holy clay pot. I'll have to go and find one. I'll be back. Okay, so I found this pot's a little too small, but the next one that I've got is huge. And I do, at the moment, want to use clay pots. I may change my mind on that. But we'll get some media in there. Now these bulbs are large, so and they've all got 2 growths each, so they're going to go right up against each other with the shoots pointing outwards, and it doesn't matter that they're touching because the new shoots are all pointing outwards and will grow round the edge of the pot. These 3 bulbs in theory will be gone by the end of the year, and it will be interesting to see that happen, because I still think that's, I mean, I believe the people that have said it totally, but it's a fair old thing to happen, isn't it? For the big bulb to be completely gone by the end of the year, just a shriveled, you know, husk of what was. Right, now I haven't actually got a label for these yet, but these are Pleione Zeus. I will go and do a proper label for these. So what we've got is 6 new growths round a ring of large bulbs, and in theory we should have at least 6 flowers in this small pot. That's going to look pretty special. All the flowers will hang over, yeah, so they'll form a nice ring, and I think that should look pretty good. That's all right, there's so little media left, I'm just going to use it up. Let's find somewhere to put it. And the rest will go up in the hoover to clean my tray out. Right, all that's left to do now is to get some moisture into this media and get a new label done. So, new playlist, starting at potting up bare bulbs. Now we're going to have a look at repotting some, but I'm going to do that in a separate video because I do have some, the Mathers ones are actually potted up, and I would like to repot those. Do you know what? No, I'm going to leave them in their pot. They were potted at the beginning of last year, so although they've got quite a bit of moss in there, they're okay for another year. I'll just check that they've got enough room in the pot. If not, then they can go into a bigger pot, but just be moved on, not totally repotted. So anyway, that's my start of season for Pleione Tongariro. And wish me luck, basically, because as I said, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I have spent a long time, a lot of yesterday, going through the information that's available and amalgamating it to try and get the best solution for me in my environment. And I'm reasonably adamant these are not going to go outside. I may change my mind because my Deesers will certainly go outside. Once we've got past the blooming stage, my Deesers will go out. They spent last year outside once I made up my mind to do that, and did better out there than I think they would have in here. Mainly because they got rained on, so they actually got proper rainwater. So we shall see how we go. Anyway, that's my start of the growing season for this particular hybrid. And we'll follow its progress, I'm sure, because I'm just thinking actually, I got a feeling that big bulb there was actually a project orchid. Well, that's that's going to look a bit different if it is next time we do the project orchids. Anyway, thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.